Week 8 is finally here, and it is Saturday morning, so it's time for the Saturday morning rundown. This is just a brief overview that I like to do last minute of some of the bigger games coming up today, and my picks on the games and who's favored and that kind of thing. Nothing really in depth with stats or anything, but just a little something to get our morning started for a really full, what's going to be a really good day at college football. So, number 8, LSU traveling to Fayetteville to take on Arkansas. LSU is a 2.5 point favorite. Come in at 5-1. Arkansas's 4-2. I like LSU in this game. They've got a lot of momentum. LSU is one of the best teams in the SEC that no one's talking about, and I think this game is very undervalued and underappreciated coming into it. And it might end up being a good game. We'll see how that LSU defense continues to progress. I heard a comment earlier this week, and I don't think it was meant to be a slight necessarily, but the guy was talking about how much better LSU's defense has gotten without Harold Perkins Jr. Now that almost sounds crazy to say. However, nothing against Harold Perkins, but with him being gone, that defense has really rallied and put together something that they weren't expected to do. So they've done really well coming off that really good win over Ole Miss last week. That actually I'm expecting that to be a pretty good game. LSU only being a 2.5 point favorite seems about right. South Carolina travels to Norman to take on Oklahoma. South Carolina's a 1 point favorite at 3-3, and Oklahoma's 4-2. And I like South Carolina in this game. South Carolina has actually stayed in there with games. Now they had the loss to Alabama, and South Carolina had the loss to Ole Miss, but two games they easily could have won. But for some reason, I like South Carolina on the road, and only being a 1 point favorite, that's as close to a pick 'em as you could get. So, I mean, obviously, yes, this game could go either way, but another good one. I think this game will be another one that has probably been a little underappreciated because of the teams playing. However, I think it's going to be a better game than what a lot of people are probably giving it credit for going into. Number 14, Texas A&M travels to Starkville to take on Mississippi State. Texas A&M is a 19.5 point favorite at 5-1. Mississippi State's 1-5. I made a little short video yesterday about what are the possibilities of an SEC team starting the season 1-6, and has that ever happened before? Um, I have friends that are Mississippi State fans. It's this thing with Mississippi State isn't funny anymore. They're calling it a rebuild year, but teams have the rebuild years at 3-3, or 2-4, or even 4-2, and they're calling it a rebuild year. 1-5 is just a disaster. Texas A&M, like I said, is favored at 19.5 points, and obviously, I like Texas A&M to win on the road. I like them to cover. I like what Texas A&M has done with their quarterbacks. I don't know if Connor Wegman's playing today. I would almost expect him to, but even if not, that backup they've got will do them just fine. I was really impressed with Texas A&M, how they took care of Missouri. I guess now it's been a week or so ago, a week or two ago, a couple of weeks, but yeah, I like Texas A&M on the road to cover the 19.5. Kentucky travels to the Swamp down at Gainesville to take on Florida. Kentucky is a 1.5 point favorite, and both teams are 3-3. This game, this is one of those games that literally could go either way. Now, with both teams being at 3-3, they're both teams are on par with each other. But even if Kentucky was, say, a 5 point favorite, and Kentucky was 5-1, and Florida was still 3-3, or maybe Florida was 4-2, don't. I would tell people not to be surprised at the upset. Now, I like Kentucky in this game. I think at this point in the season, with everything that all these teams have gone through, I think I trust Stoops more than I do Napier with his team, especially with his offense. So I like Kentucky in this game. 1.5 point favorite. That one's a kind of an easy one to take. Now, Florida ends up winning this game, pulling something crazy out at the last minute. We'll see. But Florida's coming off that overtime loss to Tennessee from last week, so we'll, like when every team loses, we'll see how they bounce back from that. But I like Kentucky in this game. And the two big ones, number 5 Georgia traveling to Austin to take on number 1 Texas. College game day is going to be there this morning. Georgia's is 5-1. Sorry, Texas is 6-0, and Texas is a 5-point favorite. Flat out, I like Texas to win this game. I like them to cover. I don't think Georgia's defense is going to be able to hold up under what that Texas offense is going to do. Offensively, Texas can do so many different things with so many different people. And not only will they spread you out side to side, they will spread you out lengthwise. I don't think Georgia is going to have too many problems getting their receivers and even their tight ends, behind those Georgia defensive backs. I like Texas in this one. I don't think it's going to blow out going to be a blowout. A lot of people are saying, that game's going to be played, and by the end of it, you're going to wonder if Georgia ever showed up and got off the bus. I don't think it's going to be like that, but at the same time, when I saw 5 points, I was like, that's really kind of low. I mean, I still would have taken Texas in this game if they would have been predicted by 12 to 14. I probably still would have taken Texas. So I definitely like the 5-point line in the Texas Georgia game, and I like Texas to win and cover. And then the big one, obviously, for me, here we are, like I said, third Saturday in October. Number 7 Alabama travels to Knoxville to take on number 11 Tennessee. And we all remember 2022, Tennessee winning literally in that thriller at the buzzer, if you will, with the field goal at the end. Both teams are 5-1, and Alabama comes in as a 3-point favorite. But I like Tennessee in this one. And if you know what, I can honestly say without any reservation or anything, if I was a fan of anybody else, if I wasn't a Tennessee fan, I would still probably like Tennessee in this one because I know what kind of effect that their crowd in that stadium can have. Neyland Stadium, I don't care. The game's at 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern. Whether it was then, morning game, or a night game, or especially a night game like we saw with Florida, it's going to be sold out. There's going to be at least 101,000 and some change there. Uh, and they get into it and they affect that game. I'm expecting communication issues with Alabama, uh, false start penalties, offsides penalties, because they're not going to be able to hear. And especially if they end up in that south end zone right in front of the student section and the band. I mean, y'all seen it on TV if you haven't seen it in person before. I mean, Alabama's going to have a pretty rough go at it, especially if Tennessee, like I said in my preview video the other day, especially if Tennessee can jump off to any kind of lead. If they can jump off to, 10-0, 14-0, especially like a 21-0 or a 21-3 lead at the beginning of the game, that is a momentum builder that Alabama will not be able to fix at halftime because like I said in my preview video, what I would predict to happen if it ended up being a situation like that where Tennessee jumped off to any kind of substantial lead at the beginning of the game, Alabama's defense is going to start pointing fingers at each other, and now all of a sudden their attention and their aggression is going to be directed at each other and not on the game. Um, I'm not predicting a blowout one way or another if Tennessee wins or if Alabama wins. Um, to put a fine point on it, I'm predicting Tennessee to win like 31-27, 42 to 30 something. I don't know. I think Alabama will manage to stay in it. I think their offense will be able to score a little bit. I think our defense is going to keep Alabama from having one of those, kind of breakout games with with all the things they normally do. There's been so much talk about, what Alabama can do with their running backs, and especially that young receiver they've got, Ryan Williams. There's been so much attention and so much focus put on that guy. Tennessee's not going to ignore him. And our defensive backs, I believe, are going to be able to scheme, or in the defensive coaching, I believe, is going to be able to scheme something up that'll be able to let them know where he's at all times, kind of thing. And then our Tennessee's offense, I mean, it just comes down to the fact that we've got to open it up again. That offensive line's got to play better. The receivers got to catch the ball. Give Nico some confidence. He's making good throws, but there's been some really crazy drops. So good offensive line play, protecting the quarterback, good quarterback throws. We're going to get good running back play from Dylan Sampson. So at least we have that. Catches by the wide receivers and penalties. Quit shooting yourself in the foot. Don't go on a 40-yard offensive drive to either have repeated false start penalties or turn the thing over, because of a bad handoff or fumbled snap or whatever. So finish drives with points. And Tennessee is gonna be in a very good spot to win that game. But there you go. Saturday morning rundown, Week 8 edition. Again, we've had great games every weekend. The season has been awesome. It's been a lot of fun, and it kind of feels weird saying that, we're fixing to start probably at least a 4-week run of some of the best football we've seen all year. It kind of goes without saying. Pretty much everybody is in the meat of their conference schedule. All of these games are conference games. Nobody in the SEC is playing out of conference. Well, I didn't cover all of them, so there may be a few. Yeah, there are a few that are playing out of conference, but most of these teams, they're in their conference play. Like Tennessee, this is Week 8, and it's going to go all the way through, Week 12 or 13. Tennessee only has one more non-conference game, and it's pretty much the same story with all the SEC schools. So another great day of college football coming up. I'll have different kind of update videos for the game this morning. um I can't remember, it's a different game, but of course the Alabama Tennessee game, and then the um Georgia Texas game tonight, the 11 o'clock game, uh Miami and Louisville. Kind of get outside of the SEC for a little bit, but Miami is traveling to Louisville to take them on. Miami nationally ranked, undefeated. Louisville unranked, but Louisville very much, kind of in the hunt for that SEC chase, especially after last night. Well, well, it kind of cemented after last night. When Duke beat Florida State for the first time in program history. It was wild, and even earlier in the game, Duke had a double-digit lead over Florida State, and that was the first time that had ever happened. So Duke was just setting all kind of records last night. But great games today. We'll be back later on with, like I said, some halftime updates, and then we'll do kind of a big swathing recap tomorrow. So y'all have a great day. Enjoy the games. See you soon.